talking about art and the soup of climate justice. Confused? Let me explain. It is no news that our world is in grave danger due to the looming threat of climate change. The temperatures are rising, the trees are falling, animals are disappearing, the islands are going underwater, there is a huge garbage island floating in the ocean, and it's difficult to breathe with all this pollution in the air. Oh, thanks. Oh, and there's plastic even in our drinking water. Anyways, to get the governments around the world to address this crisis urgently, climate activist groups around the world have been raising their voices. These groups usually organize large rallies and protests to gain attention of public and government. But in recent years, they have been approaching the protest in a little bit more unorthodox way, like throwing fake blood at buildings, smashing bank windows, and throwing liquids like paint and soup on famous artworks. In a recent act of protest, 2 members of the climate activism group Food Post threw pumpkin soup at the world-famous Mona Lisa painting. The incident took place at the Louvre in France, where the painting was on display. These protesters came to the museum as visitors. They were seen approaching the Mona Lisa painting, where they took out the cans of soup and sprayed it on the painting. They then took off their coats and were seen wearing t-shirts that read "Food Counterattack," as they stood in front of the painting saying, "What is more important, art or right to healthy and sustainable food?" The whole incident was covered on the camera and was reported by multiple news outlets. The museum later confirmed that there was no damage done to the painting. Now, one might think after all the art heist movies and seeing the popularity of the painting, it's a well-known fact that Mona Lisa is one of the most protected paintings in the world. Then why did these protesters risk their lives to spray pumpkin soup on a protective shield in front of the painting? Well, the reason behind such acts is not usually to damage the painting, but to gain attention. This act was done to gain attention towards the farmers' protest in France. Angry farmers all around France have been using their tractors to slow down traffic and set up blockades on major roads in the country. They are protesting against unfair price for their produce, rising cost of fuel, and unfair regulations on cheap imports. These unusual acts show how the climate activist groups are fed up of the lack of response and urgency showed by the governments around the world regarding climate change issues. They have been using bigger, bolder acts to get their points across every time. For example, in December last year, the famed climate activist group Extinction Rebellion turned the historic Grand Canal in Venice green by throwing chemicals in the canal from atop of Rialto Bridge. They then unfurled a banner that read, "While the government talks, we hang by a thread." This was done to protest the ongoing COP28 summit, as the group was unhappy with the talks being chaired by oil company owners and fossil fuel lobbyists. Extinction Rebellion is not even the only group that has employed such tactics to gain the attention of people and governments. Since 2002, organizations like Just Stop Oil, Animal Rebellion, and Sea Rebellion have been employing these tactics as a form of protest to gain attention of people all around the world. Some other acts of rebellion by such groups include chaining themselves to goalposts during matches, chaining themselves to banks, grounding all private planes at Amsterdam airport by cycling and jogging on the airstrip, and throwing fake blood on buildings. But let's not forget that these acts do not come without consequences. More often than not, these people are quickly arrested and have to face jail time in most cases. And they're also termed as public enemies by the government for the inconvenience that they cause. The mayor of the city for Venice regarding the Grand Canal incident said that these groups should be termed as eco-vandals. Another concerning report regarding such groups comes from UK, where the Met Police says By now, they have spent about £20 million on Just Stop Oil protest due to the non-cooperation of the group. The force said that the time it has spent on the group equates to roughly 300 officers being taken off the frontline policing each day. Now let's take a moment to consider the perspective of these groups. While their actions might stir things up a bit, but there's a valid argument behind their urgency. Scientific reports and the development in our ecosystem backs their message. Yet, it's important to dig into their methods and tactics. After all, we need to ask this question: how these protests are affecting people on both sides of the equation. I will leave it up to you, the viewers, to decide on whether or not you agree with the tactics employed by these groups. I'll take your leave now and promise to come back with another exciting episode next week on Beyond the Bulletin with Muskan. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our channel for more regular updates.